Hello and welcome to Eastern Horizon. This is Malika Yubsumbul. We are live on Facebook, X, and YouTube. Indonesia is planning and preparing to send 8,000 Indonesian troops to deploy in Gaza, Palestine, under the Trump Internationalization Stabilization Force. That is a part of the Trump's Board of Peace. Indonesia is the largest Muslim country, and the message and the preparation to send the troops is something like this. That is one of the major news in among the Muslim world and the Muslim countries. So to discuss this, that how it will be impact inside Indonesia and the other countries, I have joined by Dr. Kusnanto Anggoro, professor of the politics at the University of Indonesia. He's a researcher in international politics and security affairs at Indonesian Defense University. Thank you very much, Dr. Kusnanto.
Thank you, Malik, for inviting me. This is going to have a very important discussion with you on very hot issues here in Indonesia, especially the Indonesian promise to join the international stabilization forces in Gaza, and maybe even much hotter than the debate before, when Indonesia joining in Davos to the Trump-initiated Board of Peace.
Yeah. So okay, so let me go to my first question. That how you see, especially inside the Indonesian society. I mean, how this development, this message, and this activity to send the 8,000 troops to Indonesia. I mean that how it sounds inside Indonesia.
Well, until today, there are many resentment against the idea of President Prabowo to send troops. Even when Indonesia joining the Board of Peace a couple of weeks ago, also some resentment among people. But I think resentment is quite normal in the changing of government, especially when you have a year-old presidency like now, which is significantly very much different from the practice of the past, even including with the more authoritarian or something, Joko Widodo, the predecessor of Mr. Prabowo. Because back then, say sometime in the mid of 2015 or something until 2023, though Joko Widodo is also somewhat less consultative to the public. But at least you have a foreign minister, Ibu Retno Marsudi, who is quite willing to discuss foreign issues with the stakeholder here in Indonesia. Now it's totally different because President Prabowo, everybody knows his background is military, is somewhat autocratic or even tend to become authoritarian. So basically the policy making process in Indonesia is a top down. Even people inside the foreign ministry or even in other ministries not knowing about what actually initiatives that President Prabowo actually embarked outside the country, including in Davos when he joining the Board of Peace on a couple of days ago, when he's actually promised to send 5,000 to 8,000 peacekeeping forces to Gaza and so on. Even people in Department on Foreign Affairs and some part on the military, even in the Center for Peacekeeping Education and Training here, is not quite aware that we are moved that fast. And of course, many people has been brought up many ideas about legitimacy of BOP, the Board of Peace initiated by President Trump, that contradict to the position of the United Nations, and so on and so forth, which is I agree until that point. Nevertheless, as far as BOP is concerned, of course, there are a lot of things should be clarified, and everybody agree as well on that. So the discussion about BOP is slowing down. It's becoming more patient during the last 3 days of the president meeting a couple of people from Muslim community, from the former official Department of Foreign Affairs, as well as academic and researcher, and so on and so forth. And also about this one on the issue of the Indonesia joined the international stabilization forces in Gaza. Yet we don't know actually, and I don't think the president know as well.
mm,
about what
mm,
actually international stabilization force is all about. Because if you are
mm,
looking at on the POP, of course, there are some point about 20 point of Gaza peace plan and mentioning about the international stabilization forces and UN
mm,
resolution number 2803, for example, is also provide endorsement toward the ISF. But what's not quite
mm, mm,
clear is actually what
mm,
is the mission the ISF would be. Because even among US officials, I don't think they are come into agreement already. If you're looking at or read any
mm,
paper in the US, for example, yesterday's statement made by U.S. envoy to United Nations, stating that the ISF, International Stabilization Forces, would engage in demilitarizing Hamas. I don't think it would. There is no such thing as yet at the moment. Because if you are looking at on the charter of the UN, of course, everybody, every country or group of countries could establish international forces and so on, and then endorsed by the United Nations and possibly could be sent somewhere, including in Gaza. But there
mm,
should be more operative rule of engagement about time limits until when they should be there, what kind of task and mission would be exercised in the end, whether it
mm,
did a consent from the and so on and so forth. Until today,
mm,
so far as
mm,
international stabilization force is concerned, there is no clarity. We
mm,
are actually expecting the president would brought up this issue on the 19th
mm,
of February, when there would be a meeting among the member of the Board of Peace, and while Indonesia, of course, another interest, including on discussing about the reduction of tariff with the United States. They will be discussing this one on the 18th and 19th February. I think
mm,
the president should actually brought up many issues, more operational, what
mm,
actually the ISF
mm,
mean. Uh,
mm,
from my perspective, considering, for example, that the role of peacekeeping mission in Indonesian diplomacy, I have no doubt at all. Because
mm,
it was actually already declared sometime in 2004 or 2007, if I remember correctly, by President Yudhoyono at the time, that
mm,
Indonesia is already aspired to become 5 or 10 top contributor to the peacekeeping operation, led by, of course, United Nations. And
mm,
until
mm,
now, of course, Indonesia is still very low, even compared to Bangladesh, for example, or even Fiji. Indonesia is quite willing actually to send international
mm,
peacekeeping somewhere. And of course, now it becoming problematic, especially and we have particularly
mm, mm.
OPF
Okay. Okay.
the
Mm,
only reason, if you like, exercise, of course, is very much
mm,
problematic, even among Middle Eastern countries itself, and this kind of stuff. What problematic, what worrying for some people here. Else we do not
mm,
have
mm.
any diplomatic relation. But I think the president have different idea on that.
Okay. So let
I
me
don't
let
know,
me
because when he met a couple of
let me
people
ask
who, yeah,
let me ask the another
mm,
point that as far as the peacekeeping mission is concerned, I think that that is okay. But the critic and on the international level, there is a perception that
yeah,
there might be a conflict, a collision between the Hamas and these ISF troops because Donald Trump is very willing and he's very eager because he used the words that the Hamas is born like weapon in their hands. So there is a wider speculation that there could be a conflict between the ISF troops and these Hamas. So in that case, where you see the
hello,
situation will
cannot hear you
be
clearly.
unfold.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
I can
I can hear
I
you.
can guess your question, but yeah. That is the most concern here, especially among Muslim community, including Muslim leaders like Nahdlatul Ulama and Muhammadiyah and so on, because it involves Hamas. And like I said before, even UN envoy, United States American envoy to United Nations is not quite clear about this. He said 2 days ago that ISF, International Stabilization Forces, has the very mandate to demilitarize Hamas, meaning that they actually will be confronting or facing Hamas on the ground. It's
Mm,
not quite certain. I'm not, and I don't endorse in that position because according to
mm,
me, it should not be. Because if
mm,
you are
mm,
limiting on the role of the ISF, it's nothing more than first actually supporting or helping Israeli and Egyptian military forces during the first
mm,
process, at least, of the Gaza peace plan, especially on the ceasefire issues and perhaps on the early stages of the second stages, which is basically on demilitarization and so on and so forth. Even on the
mm,
demilitarization issues, I don't think that ISF should have had exercise to demilitarize Hamas, but to
mm,
something else. For example, to something like a maintaining public order, basically the role
mm,
of policing, and
mm,
thirdly, monitoring the ceasefire, and so on and so
mm,
forth. This is something that is not clear as yet. There is nothing on
mm.
paper on this guy. That's
Exactly,
why I
exactly.
suggested before in our discussion before that President on the meeting with President Trump on the 19th of February should ask this one: what kind of rule engagement actually the ISF would like to have had on that one? And
Mm,
then
mm,
unless they have clarification about that, it will be very difficult for President to explain to domestic audience because it is very delicate issue. And do
mm,
not forget, it's not only Hamas. Even if Hamas demilitarized completely, there is a lot of armed group in Gaza. There is a Palestinian Islamic Jihad. There is Al-Aqsa Martyr group. There is
mm,
Al-Dusam. There is also Al-Quds and so on and so forth. But it's not under control of Hamas. And they can be a spoiler. And of course,
mm.
even if these were the maximum positions,
Yeah.
Hamas demilitarized, this
Mm,
group is still very much difficult to handle. And
mm, mm,
I actually very doubtful that in the next 2 years, the National Committee for Administrations in Gaza, which is
mm,
now at the early stage, they don't really know what they are going to do because there is nothing on paper already. Many
mm,
people
mm.
still
Okay.
criticizes the National Committee of the Administration of Gaza and so on and so forth. So there's
And
many things actually need to
you,
discuss it, not only on the peacekeeping issues, but also on the, do not forget that the peacekeeping issues, especially on the stabilizing forces, is
mm,
included in the second thesis. And along with these functions is also security measures, two about government, and three about reconstruction. And
mm,
nothing in place except the picture of that provided by Jared Kushner, uh, with basically
yeah.
like board of properties to create
Mm,
a Gaza that became of a center of tourism and so on and so forth.
mm,
So
mm.
many questions,
Okay.
of course.
Yeah.
And
So
secondly, of
actually,
course, regarding the Israel is very important. Mhm.
okay. Yes, yes, yes.
Yes.
Go ahead. Go ahead. You were saying about the Israel, something about
Yeah,
Israel.
Israel is difficult. I think public sentiment and traditional foreign policy approach. Of course, we do not or should not engage with the Israel because Israel's colonial power and so on in Gaza,
Mm,
and because we do not have any diplomatic relationship with Israel, and third, because joining Israel, any effort is basically also provide indirect or even direct justification to what Israel has been doing in Gaza or in West Bank in the Palestinian
mm,
issues. Basically,
mm. Okay,
that is
okay.
a
So
traditional issues, I guess. I mean,
yeah.
traditional perspective. I would put this one first. If we do not have any diplomatic relation, it would be difficult actually that we have a leverage to discuss Israel.
Mm,
Some people begin to talk about a changing from within here in Jakarta, especially for Prabowo supporters, not me,
mm,
by saying that it is better to join and then to change the rule of the game, trying to influence the procedure and so on and so forth, which is I
mm,
doubt it, especially because Indonesia do not have any strong leverage in international and the in global politics. Secondly, is that because of the Israeli and so on, of course, because it could again the interest or perception of some Muslim people, because Indonesia majority is Muslim. But if you are looking at some other countries, I guess some other countries, including some Muslim countries, already open up diplomatic relations since 2 or 3 years ago, when American proposing about the Abraham Accord. Some countries actually also opening diplomatic relation with relations, and even Saudi Arabia is beginning trying to normalize, unless there was conflict sometime 2 years ago, I guess. But uh,
mm,
perceptions among Muslim countries is also also changed. And I am personally on the opinion that uh, we hope that we could change Israel perspective. Of course, there should be some trade-off and so on,
mm,
but I think we should make clear distinction between, on the one hand, operational mission of peacekeeping, which is
mm,
political objective may differently defined by many people. But for
mm,
Indonesia, it's very simple because the political objective of joining the international stabilization forces is to prevent catastrophic, more humanitarian casualties in
mm. Okay,
Gaza.
okay,
Some
okay.
people
So let
should
me,
have known. Even myself, for
yeah,
example, if I read, for example, more complete, there is no
I,
mention
I got
about two-state
I got your point.
solution.
I got your point. Yes,
Okay,
yeah, I got your point. My follow-up
okay.
question is this: that previously there was many countries who committed that they will send these troops, including Pakistan, who is on the front hand and the front row in this ISF and towards the United States policy towards the Gaza. But Turkey also said that they will send. But then, because in these countries there is a very strong anti-Israel narrative. These
Mm.
countries very much strong against Israel. So Indonesia being the largest Muslim country, do you think that this is something like the part of this project, that just let's send first Indonesia, being the largest Muslim population country, that will set a precedent, and then let the follow other countries. So, do you think it is something like that?
I hope so. Yes, I don't know. Sorry, I don't know. I meaning that they. I don't think that president have many idea on that. At least he doesn't speak so much about that kind of issue, but it is one temporary and so on. But my guess is, let's say that even if Indonesia would like to set the 5,000 and so on, or even a couple of hundred only, it is would eventually realize maybe sometime in August and in October, meaning there is still 3 months time. I do hope that during these 3 months, there will be more clarity of what actually international stabilization force is all about, what
Hmm,
kind of missions Indonesia would actually take up exercise in Gaza, because you're
hmm,
looking at there will be many posted. I hope there will be some countries joining the ISF eventually, and there will
hmm,
be issues of stationing, for example. Maybe some part will be in camp units, some other unit of some other countries from the Rafah, other countries from and so on, with different uh, military and political
hmm, hmm.
objective, including,
Okay,
for example,
okay,
limited on, well, this is my
hmm,
imaginations,
okay,
humanitarian issues on development and so on. What that
hmm,
meaning that these international stabilization forces, or part of it, is not acquire a task for combat and military operation, while military and
hmm,
combat operation would remain in the
hmm,
hand of Israeli army
hmm,
and Egyptian army possibly. So it
hmm.
depends. It must be clarified. Because if
Okay,
we are listening to the Indonesian official, especially chief of the
ah,
Indonesian army, the
hmm,
military of Indonesia that would likely to be sent to Gaza is the construction and uh, engineering unit and the HUD unit, meaning that it's not a combat unit.
yeah. I see. I read yeah, I read this the statement that comes from the president spokesperson, that we are sending for the humanitarian and for other kind of the stuff. But my another question to you is this: that in case let's suppose that the Indonesia will send some troops. So being in the Muslim community, do you think that is there any kind of the setback to Prabowo from the Muslim community in Indonesia? Do you think that is there any kind of the challenge he can face?
It will, especially at the street level, I guess. But I think that the Indonesian dynamic
Exactly,
of
because this
politics
is
is
my point.
different now.
Because
It's changing as well.
it is a
If
big
you're discussing at the
political.
street level, there may be some Islamic group actually go to the street and make some protests with pamphlet and so on and so forth. But if we are talking at the political and higher level, either the political Islam political parties in the DPR, in the Indonesian parliament, or
Hmm,
the Islamic group, non-governmental social organization like the Kusnanto Anggoro, like Nahdlatul Ulama and Muhammadiyah. The issue for the president is actually how to communicate this idea. Politically, he would be okay, especially because of the very weak contest at the parliamentary level. And he,
Hmm.
it seemed that it is very strong as well, considering the some support that he has from the group like Nahdlatul Ulama and Muhammadiyah, at least some Muhammadiyah leader. And so at least among the Islamic social organization, it will be divided. Street level is different to predict. But if you're looking at the tendency of Indonesian protests during the last 2 or 3 years, it's happening in the social media. So in
Hmm.
that sense, I would look to assume that in fact the digital technology, the social media, and so on, it provide a safety valve to moderating mass protest state level. So I
Hmm.
would say yes, there is good protest at the state level, but I
Hmm.
don't think that this protest will significantly challenge or it's still far from the threshold of the Indonesian political stability.
Okay, so Indonesia and Israel don't have the diplomatic relations, and do you? And what would be the scenario after the deployment of these trips? Do you think that it will pave a way for Indonesia and Israel to set up some diplomatic ties, or Indonesia will become the part of this Abraham Accord? What do you think?
No, I don't think Indonesia is opening a diplomatic relation with Israel. No, no. I never that one. It's uh, too serious issue to discuss at the moment. People, rational and objective people is only assuming that, of course, we are not isolating everybody, including Israel, who would maintain some contact in some front, but obviously it's not diplomatic contact with Israel. Though Indonesia always use intelligent relations among intelligent officials with Mossad and so on since 1970s, I guess, a chain of information and this kind of stuff. But it's too early to tell. But I
Hmm.
personally against the opening up of diplomatic relation between Indonesia and Israel. And I don't think they need to. I think it is our obligation for Indonesia to isolate Israel at the diplomatic level. We can talk without diplomatic relation with official diplomatic relation with Israel.
Hmm, hmm. Thank you very much, Dr. Kusnanto Anggoro. We were discussing about the Indonesia deployment plan of 8,000 troops to Gaza. Thank you very much, your insight. I really appreciate it. And stay tuned. I mean that you can follow us on Eastern Horizon, our Facebook page, X page, and YouTube, and you can support us to present this balanced and the impartial analysis for the Eastern Horizon. So we will come back again for our new broadcast and the live streaming. Thank you very much, Dr. Kusnanto.
Thank you, Malik. It's nice